Lapita's gun. I should have looked to the left like I normally do. All right. That was just another practice gavel, everybody. Well, we'll proceed. Third time's the charm. Sorry. Ready? All right. For reals again. Call the meeting to order. Please let the record reflect that Member Ortega Romero, myself, Vice President Del Palacio, and Member Sun are present. Member Dr. Luna O'Hara is absent. Everyone, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. Vice President Del Palacio, if you'd please read the land acknowledgement.
Yeah. Tolleson Union High School District serves 14,000 students with 15 indigenous communities represented throughout our 7 high schools. The Tolleson Union High School District Governing Board would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, Akamel Atham Pima and Peepaw Maricopa peoples, and pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. We recognize their enduring connection to this land, their rich culture and language, and their invaluable contributions they have made and continue to make in our community. As we gather today for the Tolleson High School District Governing Board work study session, let us remember the significance of these lands and honor their legacy, the legacy of the original stewards of this territory.
Thank you. All right. Throw this over to Superintendent Kaez and our team to kind of discuss any updates and just kind of where we are. And then the board will start discussion.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I'll present from the podium. All right, so we're going to recap just where we've been the last handful of years and talk about where we're at now so we can talk about where we want to go going forward. So give a little bit of history on the district office, some of the current issues and the proposed solution. Also go over the survey results from the survey we issued, and then we're going to open it up for discussion on possible solutions. So this particular district office, this building we're in right now, was built back in 2006. And back then we had 4 campuses, 4 schools. We had 2 programs with CEA and Lighthouse. We had 7,347 students. Looking at 2027, which is when the building would complete, if we do in fact build a building, at that point we're going to have 7 campuses, 10 schools. CEA and Lighthouse are now alternative schools, no longer programs. We have the new school that's under construction. And we do have one program. We have our Distance Learning Academy. We are now servicing, by 2027, we should be over 14,000 students. So you can see we're about double what we were from the time that we built this particular building, which is why we've outgrown it. So it's not a shock that we've outgrown the building. Ever since adding West Point, we knew that we were outgrowing this building and we started making plans on what we were going to do next. So back in 2023, we first started kicking around the concept of adjoining the A and B building with a new building that would go in between the two to create more office space. But our architect quickly ruled that out as a possibility. Issues with the land underneath, that it was not going to be feasible to try to build a building that adjoins the 2 buildings to give us more office space. We moved off of that concept, and then we started looking at the T-shaped building that was going to be on Van Buren. We had a couple of board members who took exception to that. We also had some community voices, some former board members who took exception to that. It involved needing to relocate the park to south of the high school campus. The city came out, I presented the concept to the city. Overall, it seemed that the majority of the city council was in favor of that design, but still it was a concept that we ended up not moving forward with. And so we got away from the thought of doing a T-shaped building on Van Buren, where currently we have the basketball courts and the racquetball court. And we have the mural up on the racquetball court. One of the other things that we were getting hung up on was how to safely move the racquetball court out to the land we acquired south of the Tolleson campus without the racquetball court falling apart and us losing that mural. And we talked to several vendors. It just wasn't going to be possible to just pick that up and drop it off on a new piece of dirt. So we ran that plan for a while, and when everything fell through, then we got off of that option. We then started looking at Avondale. Avondale has a great piece of land that is on Avondale Boulevard, right next to the I-10. And once we started to engage in conversations with the city, they did not want us to acquire that land because they have that designated for entertainment, and they really want to see entertainment go on to that parcel. So that was not going to be an option. That's when we began discussions with Glendale and setting up the Glendale option, which is the option that we've currently been discussing right next door to West Mech, the parcel of land that's available over there that we've now acquired. So some of our issues looking around the district that we've been trying to get solved, we have insufficient space here at the district office. We have some very small offices that have as many as 3 people sharing a small space, very small space, like not much more room than what I have at this podium. We have insufficient space at CEA. We haven't been able to take all of our students in there. In some cases, when the student wants to be in CEA now, it's them needing to go over to DLA, which is not the perfect environment for that student. So we're having a hard time coming up with space over at CEA. They've outgrown that area. The working conditions, both at Lighthouse and DLA, are extremely poor. At Lighthouse, it's a portable building that's more than outlived its useful life. In fact, when I first came to the district, the capital improvement plan had already for 5 years reflected the lighthouse needed to be replaced. So we're going on about 15 years from when the idea of replacing the lighthouse space was first thrown out there. The working conditions at DLA, before DLA, Distance Learning Academy, moved into the portables at Westview, literally the day after, we already had demolition of those portables scheduled. And it was only the day before that we pulled off on that plan to give a home to DLA at those portables. And it was told to them then that that was always going to be temporary. So those portables have more than outlived their useful life and have been an issue with our DLA staff that's been over there. So those are some of our staff members and students who are in some poor working conditions that we've been trying to get addressed. And then we have a need for a family resource center. We've had presentations to the board already about what that's looked like over the last few years. When we're talking with the community about these needs for a family resource center and being able to do more for our community. So that's something, again, that's been in discussion now for several years. Distance Learning Academy. So the solution that was brought forward was to, at the Glendale facility that we're trying to build, be able to house the district office there and the Family Resource Center and the Distance Learning Academy. And then that would open up the opportunity to then move CEA into Building B, which would be about a 50% increase on their total space. And then Lighthouse Academy could then move into either CEA or into a new building, but then that would allow us to go ahead and demolish the portable that's been sitting over there that's been used by Lighthouse, which again is a portable that's far past its useful life, and also then would regain more parking spaces right there around the Tolleson campus. As we progressed on this proposed solution, the board approved for us to go out on May 27th and I should actually say 25, to go out and purchase the Glendale land at $7.3 million. We spent for that 6.96 acres. We have so far invested $1.8 million in design costs, $300,000 in pre-construction costs. I have both of the years wrong right there. The GMP expires. This is the problem with doing a presentation during so close to New Year's. The GMP expires on 1/14/26. So right after our meeting tomorrow, that GMP would expire. And if we are going to do anything at that campus, it means that we would be going back out to the GC and asking them to provide a new guaranteed maximum price. Additionally, the building itself has already gone in for permit, and it's been grandfathered under the 2018 rules, but now the city is going to move everything up to the 2024 rules. So there's some grandfathering on the building permit. There would also, if we are, doing a significant major redesign, is going to cause us to have to go back out for a new permit and then to comply with the new rules, which would make some changes in our HVAC area for that building. So that's currently where we're at on that one. At the request of member Ortega Romero, we went and issued a survey to get responses back from the community as well as staff, students. It was an open survey so that basically anyone could take it. We worked with Hanover to go ahead and issue the survey. Their protections against essentially ballot box stuffing was limited to looking at the IP address that was being used, again, because this is an open community survey. They originally were going to try to segment it into two different surveys, one for staff, one for community members. We released the staff one first. It already had community responses on it. So that, negated the possibility of trying to do two different surveys because the links were already being shared right after issuing. So it all went as one survey, just out to everyone. The only ones that were then taken out was if you literally answer the survey from the exact same device twice, then the second time you answered from that device would be removed. But other than that, if you did it from like your cell phone, then your laptop, we would count both votes. That being said, almost half of the responses were coming from staff members. So of the 886 respondents, almost half of that was staff members. That's about 25% of our staff that filled it out. I did give directions to the principals and I did email all staff and say, before you leave for winter break, fill out this survey. But our staff is getting survey fatigue, and so you see that had the effectiveness to get us about a quarter of our staff to actually do that before taking off for winter break. So that's the makeup of who responded to the survey. That being said, here are the results. Phoenix received the least number of votes, followed by Glendale. You have 11% who said they had no preference on where we put the district office. So we're just happy they filled out the survey. And then you see Avondale coming in here in second, which should not be a shock considering we're about to have our fourth school in the city of Avondale. When you look at city of Phoenix, we have one campus. In the city of Glendale, we have one campus. In the city of Tolleson, we have one campus. But we're about to have 4 campuses in the city of Avondale, so it's not a surprise to see Avondale ranking pretty high on the survey. And then the overwhelming response was to keep the district office here in Tolleson receiving 71% of the vote. We also asked questions about the Family Resource Center, since it was also alluded to in one of our meetings to find out more information about the Family Resource Center. And you can see all the concepts that were being proposed for the Family Resource Center did receive very positive support, with the one that received the most positive support being the clothing and food closets. We are doing some of this now on each campus with our Callahan closets, and we're expanding that program. And the Family Resource Center would then give us the ability to have more big ticket items. So like we may have a refrigerator at the Family Resource Center. We could show a picture of it streaming on the TV at all of our different campuses. And then if we have a family in need for a refrigerator, then we're able to take it from the Family Resource Center and get it to that family. So clothing and food closets were the top need that came out. But all of the different things that we have proposed for the Family Resource Center did receive very positive support. That is where we're at. We have some very creative people behind us with our architect, our GC, and at this point, it is just an open discussion on possible solutions.
Yes, thank you, Superintendent Kayas. Thanks to our GC and architect teams for working on different options over the last several months, and certainly thank you to our community and staff for the ones that filled out the survey, the ones who got it. Obviously, this not always easy discussions, but for me, I think that if we can find some middle grounds on things or options that we do need space for our teams, to the current teams that we have, teams for growth. supporting our staff at the site, supporting our students across the district, allowing for innovative spaces, for developing, meeting. I mean, we don't have a lot of meeting and training spaces. So, are there, I'm not sure if the team has looked at options of splitting. We already kind of have a split district office situation already as it is with the warehouse. We have, 3 departments over at the warehouse, is that right?
Yes, we have, Adam is out there, Gabe's out there. We got facilities, we got warehouse,
Food
we have food
service.
service, school operations. So yeah, we have several departments right now, especially because of space needs, because really, Adam and his team would be in this building if there was space for them, but we had to move them out there to the warehouse.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what options you guys may have looked at, but yeah, I mean, if there's, because obviously we've already acquired the land, we have some plans for facilities. Our B building team does need additional space for growth, and I did like the idea that we talked about years ago about being able to shuffle our alternative programs that we just got listed for new alternative schools into more functioning spaces because the lighthouse building, I don't know if you've been to it or been to it in a while. It's old, outdated. Those kids and the staff deserve a better space. CA kids need more room for growth to be able to serve our different populations. So if nothing else, I hope that we can have a conversation on multiple options and seeing what we can do. I'm gonna get some questions.
Point of order. I requested for a question, and that was not given. Before you make any comments, I think we need to continue to have some Q&A before we move to comments,
I
and to
can make
have the open
comments.
discussion.
You have a question?
Yeah, for the third time requesting.
Okay, well,
Therefore, I had to make a point of order.
when he
As the
finished,
board
as
president,
the
you
board
need to have the
president,
procedural steps in place
wanted to make a
so that we
comment,
can
so
have
I'm
an
allowing you
orderly
to answer a
manner of
question
having the
now.
meeting. And don't you
If you wanna
interrupting me
answer
right
a
now that I'm
question,
making
you
a
can ask your
statement.
question
You're gonna
now.
go on and talk over me. When I'm asking to have a
what you were
dialogue of questions that was presented right before us. And for you to inject and make your comments that
Yeah.
goes on and on and on before we can even address our questions, what happens to the rest of the board? It's not just you.
Yeah. And now I'm turning over to you if you have any questions.
Point of order, based on point of
Okay.
order.
Not based on point of order, based on that I was finished. Do you have any questions?
When we had our work study, there was a motion that was made, and according to policy, work studies, we don't make motions. I sat there and watched you guys make mistakes after mistakes. We have skipped all of that, and everything would have been the status quo if that motion wasn't made. And now we're in this mess. And when that motion was made, you opened that floodgate, and here we are. I just don't understand why we are constantly breaking procedures. You are paid to make sure that the board is run smoothly. And when we are misplacing our procedurals, just because we have a veteran that's been around for 17 years, doesn't give him the right to run amok and to screw up everything and lose so many projects that now we have to start all over again. And then everyone's pointing fingers. When the reality is, if we follow procedures, we won't be in this mess. Second, the motion was to have a survey done after the holidays, time-stamped. You guys jumped the gun without another work study with the board members as requested. There's procedures violation after procedure violations that is eroding the community trust, and it inhibits certain board members here that wants to provide protection for all people concerned. That's the community with the students, that is forefront, okay? We all delineate from there, their families, the teachers, the front line, the campuses with the staff principals, and then the district office. and then the superintendent, and then the board members. We are here to provide the bird's eye view to make sure we follow policy. When we don't, we get into mess. We're under audit. These procedures are very detrimental. The survey should not even be counted. We may have to redo them. Motion, second, if we have to, but that's going to delay. Because you guys just want to, bulldoze us through. And those that really deserve these projects are not getting what they deserve because everyone's making a mess. And it's up to the board members to clean everything up. But when we try to clean things up, no one is in compliance because nobody thinks about outside than themselves. We think about the community first. And then we go up the chain. And it's up to us to make the final decision, not the cabinet members, not our superintendent. You don't override a motion. The motion for the survey is to be done after the holidays. There's a reason for that. You want to work with a board president that's just going to do things on his own and go overreach and make up policy as he goes along? And you're going to sit there and let it happen? We're under auditing. Open meeting law violations. Policy violations. You are held accountable for all this. I am only one board. I can't make any decisions without my colleagues. And for you to inject and direct and misguide, you are harming this community. You are harming our vendors, our staffs, our cabinet members, their livelihood, all of our livelihood. Our status as an elected official, jeopardizing our fiduciary duties, putting us in harm's way. You don't have to like every board member, but you do answer to the board. You don't put us in a queue when you don't like our suggestions. You share it with the board, and we make a decision among ourselves if we agree to it or not. You don't hide behind the scenes and withhold information. This project is in a dire situation. We want to preserve it in its most original form. It's getting harder to do that because there's some illegal moves, violations of open meeting laws, protocol that has not been followed. How are we going to backtrack to make sure this is all right?
So, Member Sun, I'll take your questions in order. First, on your first question of why don't I run the meetings? If the board wants to change board policy to appoint the superintendent to be the one who runs the board meetings, I won't hesitate to do so. On your second,
Can you tell me when and where and the timestamp that I made that request that you run the board on our behalf? If not, I've been repeatedly saying that you do not run the board. And that when you see one of our board members violating policy procedures and making misquote information and sitting there like there's nothing wrong with it because nobody else knows what's going on and screwing everything up for everybody else, killing projects, when if we follow our procedures, we could bought some time and to think and to regroup and salvage. Yes, we have noises out there, but ultimately we are accountable. We are under audit.
and Member Sun, to get to your second question, in regards to why we had the survey go before winter break as opposed to after winter break, I sat down with all of our school principals and I asked them what would be, understanding that our staff has survey fatigue, they're going through finals, we have a lot of things going on, what would be the best time to implement a survey? The principals overwhelmingly, unanimously said, please do it before the break so we could try to use that as a checkout ticket. When we come back to start second semester, that is the absolute worst time to try to implement a survey if you actually want their responses. So based on that guidance from the principals, we implemented that survey before we left for winter break.
You broke protocol right there. The motion carries. The motion that is vested by the state statute.
And Member Sun, President Chapman, it was not a motion. There was not a vote of the board. It was a board member stated, I would feel more comfortable making a decision on this if we had survey data so I could better understand how the community
The
and the
board
staff feel
member,
about the
Miguel
location of
Ortega,
the
is
district
a
office.
new board member that does not understand that he has to put a long-winded, open-ended question motion that includes the kitchen sink. Once he made that motion, we clarified on the parameters, and if we needed to have a vote, again, you failed to inform the collective board on how to go about procedurally. Again, that is not up to you to make that decision. If that is the case, you should have brought it back to the board, informed the board, and to say, we won't be able to do a work study for the board members to discuss about the content of the survey. The survey, what we were shown by before us is not what we were thinking to have. We wanted to have a different design so that we target specifically. You guys went ahead and just did this without the input of the board that we requested it during the meeting. Now you want to go splitting hairs about each word that we did not use in the motion? And that was even not brought to our attention? Well, they didn't say anything, so let's run with it and do whatever we want. And we don't have to inform the board. You went and ran and told the principal, and you did a survey with them and asked them? That's fine, that's okay, but you're supposed to bring that back, knowing in a public meeting with a live motion, timestamp, with parameters given, and you did not notify us that we didn't do a proper motion. So you took advantage of the board.
Member Sun, President Chapman, once again, I never stated that Member Ortega Romero did not make a proper motion. Those are your terms. I stated that Member Ortega Romero had requested that we conduct a survey of the community and the staff so he could have a sense of how they felt about the location of the district office. And Member Ortega Romero is on the phone, and if he feels offended by the fact that the survey went out prior to winter break as opposed to after winter break, he is more than welcome to voice that, and I will
You
take that
do not
criticism.
redirect my statement. If Mr. Ortega Romero has something to say, he can jump in. My concern is that the parameters that was given by the motion and the parameters that was given around the motion is that we want to wait after the holidays. I want to know what the content of the survey, that was not given, period. Period. That came from the board, from several board members, and that was not honored. If not, it's fine. You guys need to do something time limited, fine. But you need to talk to the board and let us know. Because if we're requesting something and it's not done, it's not given, that's an act of insubordination.
Do you have two other board members that share that opinion with you?
You're going to tell me that if we don't have 3 votes, you are fucking in charge? How dare you?
We will
How dare you?
not be using that language.
Stand corrected. How dare you? We had this conversation before. If we don't have 2 or 3 votes,
This is
You
way
are not
beyond
in
the
charge.
scope of this conversation. We are here to talk about,
I am
The district
addressing
office
his
planning.
question, and he has done this before, and that is an
gotten
act of insubordination.
way off topic. So if you have questions again
This
about,
is the topic with
the top-
the
okay.
motion that he made.
then stick to
This
it.
is the motion
and
that we made as a
maintain
board
proper
and that
decorum.
we voted on. And for you to stand there to say that if I don't have 2 boards, asking me to pull votes, which is illegal, again, breaking policy, giving us misdirections and misguiding us, this is another act of insubordination. Would you like to continue this conversation? Can you have a proper, decent, professional comment to show that you have earned this position?
Member Sun, President Chapman, are you stating that if I don't listen to one individual board member and her views on what should be taking place, that is insubordination?
Let me answer then. We had a motion. It was voted on.
There was no motion, there was no vote.
There was a motion.
There was a request. I followed up on the board member's request and implemented a survey.
According to the videos, he did make a motion. He said it, made it clear that it was a motion. He used the word time stamped, and now you're gonna lie publicly that it wasn't a motion, when before the two other sentences, you said it was a motion, but now it's not. It's a request. It's a request. So if it's one board member making a request, but you had two others added on to that conversation, again, it's all time stamped. Now you're saying that it's just one person, when that is absolutely not true. When the motion was made, he added the caveat saying that he wanted it to be done after the holidays. I thought that was actually a proper timeline that give us time to give us the feedback so we can have a little discussion under a work study to have the survey done. So now you're saying it's a request, and now you're trying to point it like it's just one board member, when this was a discussion in the open forum. So again, for you to miss what we're trying to say to you and derail this conversation and trying to manipulate this conversation is another act of insubordination. You cannot disrespect this board and putting languages in our mouth when we did not make such statements. So now you're saying that it's not a motion, it's a request. How dare you make that statement? There's
Member
no ground
Sun,
for that.
President Chapman, if it clears things up, we can pull back up the video. We could take a recess and replay the video, so there's no confusion about what was said that night.
So we have to
let's
now
just-
have to make it a motion and not a request, and that you don't have to listen to anything when we have a public meeting, and that we're here to represent the community, and that if we want to say something on their behalf, you can just change it up because, well, you know what, that wasn't a really a motion, it's a request. So let's just, not follow back with the board members and, not let them know what's going on. So that's what you're basically saying, regardless of what the video, the way you want to interpret it or not. Yes, let's show the video. Let's see what happens. And the word motion did carry.
Were there other of the district office related questions?
President Chapman.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's very necessary to pull up any video. I could just tell you my motion, and that was, not necessarily to conduct a survey in January, but to vote on the resolution of whether we were going to build the district office, and I mentioned at the end of the month. So I never clarified when the survey was going to be taken, and I left that completely up to the district and the administration because, I trust that they could put together a survey and send that out whenever they need to. For me, my biggest concern was the results and when we were going to be able to share that and what was going to be said on that survey. So the results are in. I appreciate everyone who was able to fill out the survey. And, when it comes time, I think it's clear what we need to do based off the results of the survey. So I hope that helps.
The
Thank you,
motion
Secretary.
that he actually conducted was further followed, and you can see in the video, and you can pull up the video, where I was asking it for February, but that February suggestion didn't carry, which is fine.
So-
And that was to defer to the idea that we wanted to have an input on it. So it may not have been part of that motion, even though a board member said it, and so Luna had a comment. The point is that for you to go about it and not coming back to the board, for the board member that made the certain request, is not right. Because you guys can do what you guys have to do, but you need to come back and let the board know. It's that simple. And for you to lie and saying that it was a request and not a motion, is that we can go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The point is that as a superintendent, when you have a board that has different viewpoints, you need to make sure that we are somehow informed with the information and to say, that's not going to work. Do you have 2 votes? Do you have consensus? Instead of just going off and doing the survey when I want it to be done at a later date so that we can solidify the content of it so we can be involved.
Okay. Do you have any questions about the facility, the plans, the city
I mean, the
location,
facility and the plans, I'm
results?
thinking we can talk more so once the vendor comes, before the board. But the fact that we made that motion in a work study, which is not policy appropriate. It's for the fact that we can all sit here and look the other way. It's shame on us. You know, this is, you guys can't keep doing this.
All right, Member Del Bosque, do you have any questions about the presented? Yeah.
No, I thought the presentation was well. I understand that even though the link was shared out, it still hit who it probably needed to hit. Got 886 responses for surveys based on my experience when I've conducted these general feedback opinions. It's pretty good, pretty decent, you know, especially before the holiday break when folks are getting ready to go about their holiday plans. It's not bad. And I want to acknowledge Member Ortega for clarifying his point and clarifying his intent and his trust in the district staff to conduct a survey. So, good. Looking forward to hearing what's next.
Sorry.
No.
Member Ortega Romero, do you have any questions on what was presented?
Yeah, just a few questions here. So I believe I might have mentioned this in an earlier meeting, but with the cost of the district office, just to be clear, that is a administrative bond that could only be used for administrative needs. And I guess the second part to that question is, what are other examples of administrative needs? Not needs, sorry, just administrative purposes that these monies could be going into?
Yes, Member Ortega Romero, President Chapman. Yes, you are correct. This comes from the 2024 bond that authorized $112 million to be spent on administrative facility needs. Some other examples would be our facilities warehouse building. So that's also taken a portion of those funds as our facilities warehouse building. Outside of that, if we were going to build, let's say, a new transportation building, that would qualify. But essentially, you're looking for spaces that don't have students. When you're looking at administrative, you're looking at any of those spaces we're building that don't have any students going into those spaces. Those are going to be more of our administrative costs.
I see. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I had received a constituent comment about that, so I wanted to make sure I follow up properly. And you know, just thinking out loud, I wouldn't be able to use this money, administrative monies, on, you know, perhaps, you know, any repairs at Tolleson or La Jolla, correct?
Correct. And in general, bond funds wouldn't go to repairs. Bond funds are more for capital needs. If it's like a basic repair, that's going to be more out of our operating fund. But if we were going to, like, let's say, for example, one of the items we had on the bond that failed was a couple of buildings over at the Westview campus. Those are school buildings. We cannot use administrative funds to pay for the school buildings. So that would be an example of other projects that would take a different bond, not this bond, to be able to fund.
And in the, you know, scenario that we don't end up doing anything and that money just sits there, what happens to that, and how long for action to be needed to be taken?
Well, I mean, we get 10 years from from the authorization to go ahead and act on that bond, and even then, that's just for issuance. We could really hold on to the money for another 3 or 4 years beyond that. This was from 24, so really we would just sit on the money until 2037 if we had to, before we were forced to figure out another plan. At that point, you know, there are districts that have attempted repurposing elections before to call out that you want to repurpose an existing bond. So that's also a possible avenue. But more than likely, rather than throw an extra question on the ballot, we would just sit on the money until we do have an administrative need.
I see. Well, you know, I appreciate for being able to answer my questions. You know, I think for me, I was able to visit the district office, and, other of the spaces that, are currently not in the greatest, work conditions. And like you don't have to trust the superintendent, like you don't even have to trust me, but like trust the district staff, trust like the teachers. And, they were the ones that told me like, hey, this is what's the issue. And it was all because of space. So I do believe that there is a need for a new district office. However, I just can't, fully support the idea of moving the geographic location, to the northern part of our district. And that's just because I've explained it before, but I was a student with, working class parents. They couldn't always drive me everywhere. So I want to make sure that, we're able to have the district office somewhere in the middle, especially because we are going to invest in a community center. So we want students to take advantage of that. And yeah, I just don't know how convenient that is for, some of these students on the southern part of the district to fully be able to travel to the northern part of the district. I know for us that drive seems easy and not a problem, but I do have to say that it might be an issue for a lot of parents that have a lack of resource. So yeah, that's just where I stand on this. So thank you.
Do you have any final comments or throw it to the team?
No, we're actually throwing it back to you guys. We do have the architect, the GC available. If there are different possibilities that you want to look at, we can have them come up and speak to the practicability of those possibilities. If we want to look at, maybe it's not the entirety of the district office, but a portion, or any other way that you want to look at how we can divide up the space between what we currently have in these buildings versus what we would build new in Glendale. They're more than able to provide any support on looking at those possibilities.
One last comment, please. Sure. I can't stress this enough. That work study that we had, that motion was illegal. We're not supposed to have a motion. We need to rectify that legally. Do you guys understand the gravity of this? I don't know why no one is like talking about it. We need to.
Okay, but it's not germane to this conversation.
It's very germane to this issue because we won't be in this situation if we follow our procedures. Why did we allow a board member to make a motion? You, of all people, knew that. I was watching you. And then I was watching you, and I thought to myself, wow, I'm going to watch this unfold in real time. Why are you guys not saying anything? This affects everybody in this project. Okay, I stand corrected.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have the architect available. They can look at different possibilities if you want to change the building to some other kind of concept. So, they're here. I'll call Barbara up, and she can walk you through any type of concept you want to look at.
Well, thank you for that. And I want to thank our partners for being here this evening. I, for one, personally would like to see how we can have the best of both worlds. Best of both worlds meaning keeping the district office here, superintendent, board offices, some admin, but then also still putting critical, other departments in that building in Glendale, which will allow them to operate effectively with space and the resources they need to potentially get the work done. So I want to know something like that possible, and what would that look like? I see different options here, but just want to have that discussion.
Can I piggyback on that? Sure. So, I prefer the status quo, but it is what it is, and we're going to respect, what is before us, and we have to, move forward. It's damn if we do, damn if we don't kind of situation. Sure. So I just want to, ask for forgiveness before anything goes forward. Ideally, with the location at Glendale, the family center and the community center and all the, various floors, I was just thinking that, this is very community-based, this is our taxpayers', money. And then I look at the location here, and the cubicles are really darn small, really small. I will really, really love to see the Tolleson location to be renovated, not to build, any new structures, but to keep the good bones and rearrange the working spaces, particularly the cubicles, and to have the lighthouse move to the north as well as the distant learning and the CEA and whatnot. And then to maintain transportation in the district office. Love the boardroom as is, status quo, the kitchen, the conference, the superintendent's office. In fact, you can take the bathroom out of the superintendent's office and expand the admin's, office. He can share the bathroom like everybody else. He can have access. But, as far as the space of this area, I think is fine. But the working space of the cubicles, like for our PR, if we can expand it and go across the hallway a little bit, if not, so that the cubicle spaces get bigger, and then the office can stay the same, as is, just, whatever the case may be. This way, the project in the north will be sustainable, maybe take off the third floor, have that money, because I know the bone structure still had to be in place. But if you take the third floor, then the cost will just go to another request, project, for here that is minimal. So that way it will be cost effective. We're not going to waste additional taxpayers' money. And then still keep the structure of the north location with the third floor, removed. And that savings up there will be used for the renovation. Love to see a corridor to connect the curriculum building, so that way they don't have to travel outside. They can have that walkway, and then with the transportation potentially. But everything else, goes to the north, because, our students really do, their staffs really deserve an office, of their own. And also with the micro schools, with Westmac, that's the ideal, opportunities, for the various campuses. And they can be a satellite office for various campuses as well. And dealing with Westmac and the relationship we'll be building with them, with the programs and the curriculum. And also the future, micro schools, in the area. So I would like to see the district office to be here in Tolleson, because that's fair, because it's public domain and people can come in all directions and to visit, just like Member Miguel was, mentioning. But so that's just my,
course.
caveat. Something very similar to a lot of my fellow board members, but more or less, it doesn't have to be exactly like that, but just, more or less.
We hear you, Ms. Sun. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I, just want to reintroduce ourselves, but thank you, Ms. Sun, and of course, good evening, President Chapman, members of the governing board. So I am Brava Punine with DLR Group, and of course, here with me today is Rita with Root Architects. I also have Hannah with DLR Group, and then of course, our construction partners, Tyler with McCarthy. We've heard your feedback, Ms. Sun. We've heard the feedback. We understand the challenges the district is currently facing. We can most definitely look at your current district office for opportunities of growth, what that kind of looks like. That would be definitely just a separate study, an additional study that we can most definitely do. We also understand that the portion and the function of the district office will remain here in Tolleson. And so what we see for the Glendale site is, to the point that Superintendent Kayas made earlier, the first phase, which is the site, the core, and the shell. So that means all of the exterior has gone into permit with the city of Glendale. And so for us to change that exterior, there's a little bit of a redesign. And so we're going to show you what, there's opportunities for us to collaborate on this, what it means to keep the district office function here in Tolleson, and what opportunities we see for the Glendale facility. Is that?
So just to echo my input, the real focus here is to make sure the ones that currently in that cubicle space and that limited rooms, that needs to be rearranged to create more privacy, more room, more accommodation, more conducive, for their well-being in their designs. I've seen the modern buildings, incorporate, they don't care about their workers. They're just gonna put them in the cubicle. But what I've seen is that where they have it like in a crisscross, like a maze, in
Sure.
the alternate design where they can really have like almost built around them like their own office, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. And it's more roomier and they can have more privacy and they can have, and they have people can come in to have a meeting with them if they want to. And not necessarily, because we don't really have the budget to make every
Of
office.
course.
But I just want you guys to think about that design, because I know there's some I saw that was very, very, fascinating. Where the cubicles are not, they don't look like cubicles anymore. Because if you look at
Right.
the aerial view, it's like a nice, space of their own privacy, with,
Yeah.
soundproof whatnot,
Yeah. And Ms. Sun, to kind of help support that, so there's a lot of opportunities that you could do with furniture. There's a lot of things, furniture has come a really long way, so we see a way to be able to facilitate that, given the flexibility of the space. So that is most definitely something that can be explored. Rita, you want to add something?
I'd like to add to that. Good evening, everybody. The whole building design that you're looking at here that we had gone through, the fundamental core design concept was to have an open plan and flexibility within the space, lots of natural light. To Bryra's point, you can have as much rearranging of furniture as interior walls because they're not load bearing and still have the flexibility to use the space for a variety of different functions. And so that was given some of the concerns that we had heard about growth and lack of space, that was a big point in the design of it.
I mean, this will go to the staffs and their team for input. So I think my biggest worry is when we were designing for the high school, as an example, is that the community don't know best what to ask for because they don't know what the limit is. And what I fear is that they're going to ask less. And I want to make sure that we get more. And there are designs where I know in my head right now that they may like and see if they can, take it to another notch based on their needs. And hopefully you guys can fill in the design to fulfill it. And that would be my, wish, as far as going through this process.
And that was the guiding principle behind the design. When we did have conversations, we saw that there was a lot of opportunity for growth in the future.
Minus the board members.
Minus the board members. And the idea was that because situations change and staffs change and curriculums and administration changes, that we wanted to provide as much flexibility as possible. So that's how the building was designed, so that you can adjust every year, every couple of years, and have the room to grow and not have to move.
So with that, we can refamiliarize you with where we are with the design. Of course, we do not foresee any major changes to the overall site plan. We would say that it would remain as it is, given where we currently are with the design schedule and the permit as well. So the site plan will remain as is. We understand, of course, this is a recap of what we saw prior. So the floor plan, the smaller building A is up to the north, the 3-story building is building B to the south. And so here, to address the concerns of the district office remaining in Tolleson, we would most definitely see a change in the function of the boardroom. So currently what you're seeing, if I could point this, I apologize, I don't have a mouse here, but we would be removing the daises, we would be removing the function that is the boardroom to accommodate for additional training center. So we would be seeing a lot of major change going on to the western side portion of the building. The remaining DLA will remain, and then the first level will also remain as it is. With that, to kind of support the vision, of course, how I mentioned earlier, one way to kind of help facilitate where we currently are with the design and permit process with the city, as I mentioned, we will be removing again the daises. We would be actually relocating the board offices to additional training room spaces. So a lot of the conversation that we heard was to be able to host community events, to be able to host that support. And so we would just re-envision the space so that it could serve larger populations of folks. So we see a minor change here in building A to accommodate that. Rita, is there anything additional I may have missed or?
No, that covers most of it. But again, the flexibility of the space is we were able to subdivide it into more usable community spaces and give you more flexibility to be able to accommodate all kinds of different groups and numbers of people.
Thanks, Rita. So then the Family Resource Center would remain as it is, DLA would remain as it is, Human Resources would remain as it is as well. And to keep going, we do not foresee any changes on level 2. Again, that part of the design could remain as is. Of course, we talked about, here is an enlarge of that, excuse us. So for level 3, of course, we understand that this is primarily that district office function. So to address this at level 3, we know that we would be removing the function that is the district office, and that would remain here in Tolleson. And the beauty of this is that it could be anything you wanted it to be, right? So we talked a lot about growth. We talked a lot about programs that could move and supplement on the 3rd level. And to Rita's original point, we can work with the group to ensure that they've got the space adequate at level 3.
Just a comment with the 3rd floor. The problem is that the bond and override did not pass. And I know that the structure of it is where the most cost is, but to save every, penny is necessary moving forward because of the additional cost for the renovation of the district office here in Tolleson. That will be a separate, project.
Sure.
Is vital that we try to conserve as much as we can from the district office because we want to, expand at a different time, maybe in a couple of years. The maximum right now we're looking at is our 8th school, and that is the end of our major campuses. There will be no further growth with the addition, possibly with micro schools, but that won't entail anything current. We had to go by what we have currently because, again, we don't have our bonds and overrides passed. We don't want to push that envelope. We want to keep it as cost effective as possible, but at the same time to preserve the design so we don't redo and waste the costs, and then to transfer as much as we can over to this location because the team is where my focus is at. We need to make sure that they are cared for. The board, we're good. We're happy. We're satisfied. Superintendent, our number 1 and only employee, we said he's fine, and he is fine, so he doesn't need anything. But our core, the heart, the ones that shows up, do the tedious work, and we're going to support them in every way possible. And you know that from day 1, that's been my calling, and to make sure that happens. But when we go from top to bottom, you guys know how I feel about that. If we can go from bottom up with the limited resources we have and really focus there, that's where we're going to make the biggest impact. That's where we're going to have longevity. That's where we're going to decrease our turnover rate. It's where they can come here and say this is their second home, and then make it work for all of us. So I know that the 3rd floor, you don't think it will be cost as much, but again, we're pinching here. So do you know how much that would be if it was just up to the 2nd floor? Roughly, not, we don't need exact numbers for the time being.
Yeah, Ms. Sun, I'd have to defer that question to our
Sure.
contractor partner here.
I think it's easy to evaluate what the internal space of the 3rd floor would be. It would be about $200 to $250 a square foot reduction, which I think would more than cover the renovations that you would choose to do if you did so here.
So what's the square feet for the 3rd floor?
It's a little bit under 30,000 square feet.
So we're looking at $7.5 million. So let's just make it between 6, 7, and we can take that cost and transfer over to 6, 7. Oh, yikes. Whatever that means, right? And we still don't know what that
We knew you were
means.
doing
You know, that, and then, you know, wherever the estimate is to renovate here, you know, we may have to, you know, go over that and see, you know, what the budget is in there. And hopefully, you know, we can make the sky's the limit, you know, as far as renovating this area, because we want to connect. If not, we may have to add a second floor to the curriculum or here. Who knows? Whatever, you know, is suited after all the intakes that you guys receive. But ultimately, you know, we do want to see the renovation as like a upgrade, you know, remodeling, you know, just to compensate, you know, what was at the, you know, at the north location, but with minimum changes, you know, with leadership. You know, don't worry about us, we'll be fine.
Can you remind us, so based on what the GMP is currently, how much would be left in the administrative bond? I can't remember. Or roughly how much would be left?
So the current GMP is 65 million. We spent 20 for the facilities warehouse. So you're looking at about 32 million
Okay.
that would still be left.
So even if we built this third floor to add even just
Actually,
conference
sorry,
space,
27 million.
even if we had like conference space or whatever in there, like there'd still be, I mean, just we're just talking about the A building, any possible A building
Yes, it would
reservations.
definitely cover any type of renovation to this existing space. The issue is not renovating the space. It's no matter how we slice this up, there are too many people in these two buildings.
Sure, yeah.
So, I mean, yes, we could just chop it up and make it look nicer, but if I have one really nice cubicle and I got to put 4 people in there, it still doesn't
Oh,
fit.
no, what I mean is if we move B and some of
Yes,
the
if
other
we
functions
move-
here.
if we move some of the
32
people over to
million,
the
Or
building.
30 million roughly is more than enough
Plenty,
to renovate.
plenty to renovate.
Every staff member could have a bathroom, basically.
So
Yeah.
the thing about renovating is that we still had to be, you know, frugal, and we are the steward of the cost of it. Just because we have the money doesn't mean we're going to spend it all. Just because of the, you know, funding, we need to have a rainy day fund as well as a future project that's going to be coming along in case the bonds and override does not pass. We don't know what the future entails. We need to lock in the funding for the project that is at hand. I know that just because we have the illusion of knowing numbers doesn't usually work that out, because we always have curveballs coming our way. We need to secure funding for future projects and for things that is unforeseen. And that will happen. We are under auditing, and that is something that people don't understand, the gravity of that. Going back to the third floor of the north location, is that can be done later on. The conference space, entertainment, whatnot, that can be done in the other floors as well as here at the district office with the renovation as well.
If I may add, given what I'm hearing here today, it would actually make sense if you were going to leave the third floor empty to relocate some of the staff that are here, because when you're doing the renovation, you have to shut down. It's going to, like, the kind of renovation you're talking about is going to be pretty significant, and it'll definitely impact your day to day. And so that's the whole idea, is that you do have the growth in the space, the flexibility to be able to accommodate some of these things while you're renovating this space.
So the third floor is not needed for the overall purpose of the design. If we're talking about relocation and whatnot, then we can just, you know, close off one side and to, you know, work, just like we were going to do with Avondale when we're going to move. You know, we're going to move to Avondale and have this place to go build up, and then we're going to come back. The floors that is already on the first, second, and the community center, that's plenty of space for what is going to be done on the third floor anyway. I understand that you guys want the project to be intact, but we are responsible for the costs. And that the second project that's coming in here, we need to be more conservative and be more responsible for the cost of it. The price of the northern part cannot stay at 65 million. It has to decrease based on that third floor to be, you know, eliminated, so that we can carry that over to this location. Because the original project was just for the district office, 65 million, and that was already way over budget. Now we're saying that we need to spread that money to do the renovation at the district office without adding on to that amount. So if we're going to transfer over 250 times about 30,000 at 7.5, you know, maximum square feet cost, that's what we want to do, is to move that cost over and not to spend any more in our coffer, because that would be a separate project.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that, ooh, I don't know why that's echoing like that. I was just gonna say that, thank you for bringing up that point. If we were to do any renovations here to our the heart of the district office, which we are kind of discussing what that would look like, leaving this intact and then renovating it, it makes sense to have the space to then have our staff work out of while these renovations are happening. Like you said, I would imagine they'd be significant, and I'd rather have the space not needed than need the space and not have it. Like, and I don't know, maybe you could speak to, I think it'd be even more expensive if you were to try and go back and, I'm not even sure you could build a third floor and go back and, once you already established first and second.
would be
I'm
very
not an
difficult.
architect, but something tells me you probably can't do that. Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, so
Good.
that's the thing. is
So
that-
my point, yeah, it's my point. Again, thank you. So that's another vital consideration as we're having these discussions, and I do think, again, not an estimator, not in GC by trade, but I would think 27 million is probably more than enough. We wouldn't even probably we would not utilize that whole thing to renovate this place. Again, I don't know, but it seems like that's a lot of cash that would be spent in renovations that I don't think we would use up. So again, for me, speaking personally, my opinion, I don't speak for the entire board. I don't say we, I say I, me in this case. I would rather, I would think the safer option, thinking about planning and growth for this district. We already said by 2027, students are going to increase, campuses are increase. We're going to need more support staff, et cetera, and they're going to need a place to work. Rather have it than be scrambling and trying to figure out where to put extra staff, and God forbid we have to put them in another portable. You know, I don't want us to be caught in that situation. So I'd
I
rather
think we
plan
miss, yeah,
effectively for the
but
future.
we're missing the fact.
And still go with what the GMP currently sits at, and still have an extra 27 mil to renovate the district office, which was really the point of contention, I think, was location of the district office, in which I think folks from what I've heard so far is that we want to leave the district office here, board, superintendent, some other folks, but then give our staff the opportunity and the resources needed in space to be able to serve our students the best they can, right? And in regards to some of the transportation concerns that I think my board member Ortega brought up, I did some research and spoke to some folks within the city of Tolleson. They have a great partnership with Uber and Lyft, where they offer all their residents discounted rides 24/7 that they can utilize. I also know City of Avondale has We Ride, which gives $2 rides via their app, but it's discounted for students. I'm not sure. And then I also know the City of Phoenix has mini program, and Glendale also has circulators. And so I think when you talk about moving families around in terms of helping them get there, especially our McKinney-Vento students, and I know our staff who serve those students work very closely with those families. So I'm confident that if our students needed those resources to get there, our staff would help them get there. As someone myself who grew up in poverty, look, my mom had me when she was 16. I know what it's like. I've been there, done that. When we needed the resources, we found a way to get there. That's what we've done. So, but I trust our staff. What was missing when I was going to school, I didn't know if I had this type of support that we provide here in our district with all of our staff, and the one-on-one direct servicing that they do with our families who are in most need, our most vulnerable students. And so, anyway, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I
So member Devin, let me just add to that. Let me just ask you a question. So what I'm hearing from you is that you want to keep the third floor intact, but what I'm asking is to take the third floor and bring it to the Tolleson area, just because the district office still needs to have a functional center where the community comes, together. And because it's at 65 million, it's going to be 7.5. So that's going to be about 57 million instead of the 65. And then that cost will be coming to here, because I know what you're saying, like, and I agree with you, because it's going to grow. We don't want it to, like, shuffle and move, but we still have to be centralized for the community. So that area on the third floor facility space should come to Tolleson, and where we can expand on the cubicle spaces with the remodeling and the connection of the buildings and so forth, so that we can conserve. Because we're almost like I don't know, it feels like we're doubling it up, just in case. I mean, it feels like we're gonna end up hoarding, and that's what I don't wanna come down to wasting. So I'm not disagreeing with the logic, I actually agree. It's just the location of it. Like, does that make sense?
So you don't have an issue with necessarily spending the funds because moving it here would probably cost the same for a single story.
Right, because if we leave it there, then we don't have the money to put more money here, and I don't want to overspend because we need to be responsible with the, costs and
So,
not
yeah.
to affect
So what I'm hearing
the,
is though, but you want to move that third story here?
not move it here, but the cost and the effect, because we may not be like the perfect arrangement depending on, so remember, we need to keep in mind the staffs and the team of what they want, because it was going to be there in that location anyway, and that was their input, and that's the need. So we're just saying that let's put that here in the Tolleson location with the district staffs and the cabinet members and how they can rearrange it, because I think the need is there. It's just the design will be different, and I want to keep it open so that they still can have access to it. But I understand what you're saying. Like, I do want that on the third floor, but now that we've all decided that it's going to be in Tolleson, that let's make sure that some of that come back here for them.
So help me understand, I guess, for clarification, what I'm hearing is you want that same space but located somewhere here on this campus?
More or less,
Because
and
that's
the
what
cost of,
okay.
yeah, the cost of it, because
So, but all we're doing is shifting. So we're spending the money either way.
but you had to keep
want
in
it
mind,
here?
yeah, but you had to keep in mind the GMP. It will be removed from the GMP from 65 to 57 million when we take the third floor and bring it to the
Well, I
Tolleson. It will be a
understand,
new
but-
RFP.
Either way,
if I
we're
may
still
ask.
spending the money, right?
If I may ask, are you, for clarification here for my notes, so the money that was going to be spent on the tenant, or the improvement of the third floor, the interior space, you'd like to use that money on the improvements here, not physically add?
So I don't
20,000
want
square-
the third floor there in that location. I want that facility, that usage of that space to be brought back here to the district location where we have all decided to have the district office. Remember, the funding is for staffs and facilitate, yeah, admin, not, so I wanted to make it clear that we're using the money wisely, because we've already made the decision to move the district back here, so we want some of that to come back with them and to add the renovation, so that, I know that that's going to take away from the GMP, but that also gives opportunities for the project now that we have to, sent out, and go from there.
Wouldn't that make the renovation more expensive?
Well, the thing is, the other way around is still expensive. The GMP is still going to be 65 million, but the location is not feasible. It's not as conducive because it's at the district office here, because we have the family center, it's going to be there, the community center, the lighthouse, whatever, and all the other facilities will be moved there, have more of a holistic, relationship with Westmac. We have a district office there for the district staff to go there when they have businesses with Westmac or with other campuses in that location. So yeah, it's going to become potentially a mini satellite district office if needed. But the core, our boardroom, everything, where we function for the community, where they can travel, like Member Miguel was mentioning, will be here, but we wanted to renovate it. We want to update it because they're crowded, they're suffering, it's insufficient space, it's not conducive, it's not modernized, they've outgrown it. And that's where I want to focus on, so that when they give that input, not only will they get the space, but they will have some facility spaces that you guys plan for the third floor anyway for them, which they put in the input anyway. Let's bring it back. We may not be identical, but it will be similar. But the cost will be moved here. And then all the other renovation will be the additional cost. Like you said earlier, with $35 million, that's plenty to cover. So, just have that, in the back of your mind.
So to be clear, though, building part of the facility in Glendale where most of the people that are currently in A building would not remain here. So that creates space for the folks that do need to remain here as far as the remodel. So that's where I'm not necessarily with the
Right, so
$27
there's two
million
parts,
that
yeah.
are going to be
No, there's two
left.
parts.
Let me finish. The part that, I mean, for me, like, it's not, we're not over budget. There's not a budgeting issue.
Well, we
There would
don't have
be,
a budget
can I
with the
finish
renovation
my
of
thoughts,
Tolleson.
please?
No, no,
You
I
get to
understand.
finish your thoughts. Thank you. We have $27 million left in available bond dollars. Should we approve, just the dollar amount as it is, obviously with restructuring, and that would $27 million could go towards any renovations that we need for the A building. I guess as far as the $27 million that would be remaining, do you foresee any additional district or administrative spending issues that we would need out of that $27 million? Should we do like a third story there and renovate the A building?
Yes, President Chapman, I'm still trying to follow this concept because I know we're talking a lot about where we want to spend money. What I'm not hearing is where we want the square footage, and if that concept of could we take the third floor and maybe hypothetically just drop it on top of this building? Like, are we talking about repurposing square footage here?
Well, that's what I'm
Or-
trying to say is
Or a
that.
thought around just
right.
like, could we spend more
But
money?
we only
here?
have the GMP in place, so we have the design, we have it. We don't have an RFP for now, the decision we agreed to have the district office here in Tolleson. And this is the meeting where we want them to hear our input on how that's going to go about. So you're saying we have $27 million in reserve that we can use for the next project that we voted for to have the relocation of the district office. My concern is that I want it to be just as nice as it was for them to go moving to Glendale. It's unfortunate, but, I wanted to bring as much possible back to the status quo with the messed up that has occurred, and that now we're trying to do the best to correct the situation, and yet to appease everybody that is involved. And what I'm suggesting is that when we go for the new project, if it's going to be $27 million, and then what they wanted to have on the third floor, we can provide in that budget of $27 million with the renovation and whatnot. Why would we spend that extra money to double up?
So President Chapman, if I may, so I'm going to attempt to hybrid everybody's thoughts into one solution. If we were just moving Building B out to the new complex, and for the most part, Building A here stays fully intact as your district office. You still have my office here. We still have our boardroom here. We still have our board meetings here. That gives all the people of Building B, right, our OLAS department, they would have plenty of space over there at the new building. The Family Resource Center would have plenty of space at the new building. DLA would have plenty of space at the new building. The boardroom
So the
that was
north
designed over
location,
there,
You're talking about Glendale?
yes.
No, but that's off the table. We voted to have it here in Tolleson.
We didn't vote on anything.
I
just to
mean,
be
I'm
clear.
sorry that we made the decision to have the design
We've
here.
not made any decisions, to be clear as well.
So, continuing with that thought, if just Building B was moving there, we have now created some open square footage, mostly in Building B, but there are some members of OLA's team who are here in Building A because we ran out of room in Building B. By moving them out to that campus, it also frees up a little bit of space here in Building A, so Adam can come home and be back in Building A. And we keep Building A intact with the vast majority of the cabinet here, with OLAS being over at the new site. It gives us then plenty of space to give everybody sufficient working space, because when you look at the sea of cubicles that is business services, it didn't always look that way. But if we don't have the Building B people in there, it also means that, yes, they could get more sufficient space in those areas as well. It also then gives us Building B as a home for CEA. It gives CEA as a home for Lighthouse. We could then still demo Lighthouse and turn that into more parking spots, which is needed by the Tolleson campus. And essentially then everybody gets the working conditions and the spaces they need to. We would also then demo the portables that are on the Westview campus after we can get DLA into the new building at Glendale.
And then, so as part of my question earlier too, so we don't. So if we kept the GMP as is, did something alternative with the third floor, whatever, I mean, obviously, training space, open space. I know IT needs additional place for servers, for backups. Um, the $27 million more than likely would remodel a building more than sufficiently. Probably wouldn't spend maybe even half of that. But do you foresee any other administrative spend that we would need? Obviously, the warehouse is new. I don't C building didn't seem like it had any issues. And I know like we've kind of moved that around as far as transportation and maintenance goes. But do you foresee any other administrative costs that we would need out of this $27 million based on what the GMP is already?
So President Chapman, to that extent, by moving IT over here, so now they have, this site could become the off-site backup, that site become the primary. Right now, we use Copper Canyon, which is not ideal to use one of your school sites as your backup. So that addresses all of our needs with IT. We've already taken care of facilities. Once IT has moved the majority of their presence out of there, we have plenty of space for transportation. So no, I don't foresee any other administrative need in the short or long term. We are getting close to built out. We would have sufficient space for our growth.
And to your earlier points, we already have the permitting and stuff for the third story or 3-story design for the main building there. But we can still play around with what the inside looks like.
So are we
So
gonna?
if we needed additional like conference space or learning spaces,
Sure.
I know like there's like a few privacy cubicles around for like folks that have to make like calls for FERPA related calls, HIPAA related calls, things like that. We'd have the space between the 3 floors, well, the 2 floors. I know the first floor is mostly family resource, but between those two, we'd have sufficient space to kind of like play around with what that looks like.
So are we
That's
gonna
correct.
ignore the survey?
Did I say putting the superintendent and board member there?
No, I'm saying the surveys, says that the district office is to be here in Tolleson.
I don't recall
Okay.
suggesting the board or superintendent being on the 3rd story of the Glendale facility.
I'm saying that the staffs with the district office stays here in
You
Tolleson.
want to keep all the district office here.
Yes. And then
That's-
have all the others like the IT and the lighthouse and district learning to go over to the north location.
I would see that being more challenging because we don't provide busing for Lighthouse or CEA, so having a central location for alternative programs makes more sense to put the students here first.
I think it'd be
So-
too limited, and also to have more opportunities with being in that location with other programs as well as the growth for CTE programs as well.
Well, so we talked about shifting everybody once whatever this project ends up looking like happens, because that would provide additional space for CA, thus providing additional space for Lighthouse Academy, and then providing additional parking spaces for Tolleson. So yes, not every aspect of district office would be moving to the Glendale facility. The key executive staff here and the board would remain here, but several departments would be able to relocate over there and then allow us to move
So
some
which
student
department will
classes
be
over.
moving over to the Glendale?
I mean, unless the team would see any additional changes, I don't know why most of those. I mean, I think the 3rd floor had PR, Adam, and
Yes,
a
sir.
couple other folks that would make sense once we remodel this that could remain here would be my guess. But I mean, I would leave it up to them to provide suggestions on what makes sense to have what team here, what team there, than what team that's already satellite at the warehouse. So
Yes, President Chapman, the suggestion would be that myself, Adam, Derek, Joyce, Joseph, we're all going to stay here. So we would all be here in Building A. So the
What
vast
about what
majority,
about IT?
Lupita, so like 6 out of our 8 cabinet members would be here. Only 2 cabinet members, or 3 cabinet members would go over there.
No, I'm sorry, where would IT be?
IT would primarily be at the new facility, but would still keep a server room here, so we could run that as primary and this one as backup.
Why wouldn't this be the primary since it's more centralized in the district?
I believe when
We
we were
have
talking
Tony
to,
out there.
I believe,
Tony, preferences on which one's your primary and which one's your backup? Come on up to the podium. Either way, he needs 2 server rooms. And we have horror pictures of when that one was almost underwater before.
Good evening. Member Sun, there's no preferences. We can do A or B. It doesn't matter. We just want the new equipment and we want to make sure that we have a backup.
Yeah, I think the primary location should be here at the central location with the backup to be at the northern location. And as far as the curriculum, you know, for me, I think the location, when it comes to the cabinet, has to be centralized because of the reach and also their, you know, travel as well to these various, you know, campuses. I'd rather, again, to see the GMP to just to be reduced just a tidbit down to 57 million, and then to have another project to go out to renovate the district, you know, location, so that, you know, wherever it needs to be expanded, you know, so be it. The curriculum, for them to be centralized and have all the teams here, and for them to go from location to location is better for the outcome for the service. Now, if all the cabinet and members all want to be in the new location, by all means, you know, have a satellite, you know, office there, you know, if you guys want to. I just think we should be careful, you know, to use, you know, our space and money wisely. I get that, you know, we don't want to later on expand and grow, but knowing other districts with higher staffs and higher enrollment, they actually have a smaller space than what we have currently, including our boardrooms and everything else. And, you know, it comes down to the question of you know, practicality, but also a conducive environment for a, you know, a workplace. I still feel that to have the core of the district to serve all the 7 campuses have to be centralized, and that the renovation, the amount, you know, the 27 million, you know, wherever that cost may be, you know, to make it happen. You know, we had to update the backs if we have to, you know, make it more sustainable, you know, to make it more conducive, you know, new carpets if we have to, just new walls, whatnot. We just want to make sure that the people who are working have access, not thinking about, oh, we're going to get a new house, but think about service and how, you know, conducive that will be. Not because, oh, it's going to be a new location, a new building. I mean, I would love to go there too. I would love to get my, you know, office, you know, but we need to be a little bit more, you know, pragmatic about it and, you know, answer to the public. If we were to make this any different, you know, I think there would be, you know, more cries again. And that's what you know, I don't want to deal with moving into 2026.
yeah. So I think real quick, so I think for me it makes more sense to move some of the staff over there than to move alternative programs over there, because again, we don't provide transportation for CA. We don't provide transportation for Lighthouse. It's going to be easier for our staff to drive from location to location than it will be for some of our parents to move kids around from location to location, especially if they have to move to a different school, depending on the circumstances of their Lighthouse situation. I wanted to ask member Ortega Romero if you have any questions or comments. I know you spoke earlier about your preference on location, but do you have any comments based on the discussion, some of the proposals that our friends DLR and Root have shared?
Not really. I guess, you know, I'm still trying to understand different proposals and details. You know, I guess from an operational perspective, would it be like, would there be negative impacts to having 2 different locations from a collaborative team environment. You know, I come from a corporate setting, and traditionally you want to have, you know, all of your, you know, heads of departments in one area. So that's just something I'm kind of thinking about right now. But I appreciate obviously the conversation and of course our presenter. So thank you.
Yeah,
I do have a question about transportation. Hold on a second.
Superintendent Kayas
This is
answer
still
Member Ortega Romero's
questions.
question real quick. Could you provide any?
Yes, Member Ortega Romero, President Chapman, to that effect, yes. Ideally, we would want everybody located in the same location. That is where we started going down with this project. But even if the board had approved the project as presented originally, we would still have facilities and transportation who would have still been separate. So it's very common for districts to have split location, especially your larger districts. So if you look at Scottsdale, you look at Paradise Valley, you look at some of these other districts, like they have multiple locations that they're running district functions out of. So then you just want to be strategic about who's being pulled apart. So when we look at the curriculum department, although I love seeing every time they do a potluck and invite me over. The curriculum department, the coordinators over there work very closely with WestMec, and in fact, spend a lot of time right now going out to the WestMec building that is on that same parcel of land that we're talking about building on. So they'd be able to do some of that collaboration just walking across a parking lot now, or inviting WestMec people to come walk across a parking lot. Keeping their whole department intact and together is very important. But do they necessarily need to meet with, Derek on a regular basis or Adam on a regular basis? No, I wouldn't say that there's never any interaction, but it's not like a daily thing where they need to meet with those departments. So it's really then just being selective about who's going, who's staying. And with this arrangement that was just proposed, that is something that, would be manageable. Obviously now those department heads would have to commute over to this building for cabinet meetings, for board meetings. Like there's going to be some back and forth commute. There may be times that people from this building are going out there. If they're having a department meeting and I'm invited, I may be traveling over there to go visit them. But it is far more manageable to shift around adults who have their own personal vehicle than it is to start talking about shifting students, and especially students who are in alternative programs and who are already dealing with other challenges, for us not to create a new challenge for them.
And I think it's important too, to your point, Member Ortega Romero. Yeah, we're not talking about splitting up departments, just where some of the departments are located. I mean, obviously, when we branched out nutrition services, they went over to the warehouse, but they went over there together. So they're still able to collaborate together if they have meetings here or vice versa. Staff go back and forth. So we already have, already the makings of a split district office concept as it is. But we'd still be keeping the departments intact because they're mostly working with the departments first and their collaboration. Not that everybody's siloed working with other departments, but they'll at least be with the core folks that they're used to working with on a daily basis rather than maybe once or twice a week. Do you have any other additional questions?
No, that's it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes.
So what I mentioned earlier about like the satellite location being in the north, location, it still allows, OLAS to, collaborate. It's not going to impede on that, because there will be, a space for them, regardless if they're stationed or not, because they have to be still centralized for their team to go to other 7 campuses, including the 8th one, which is in direct opposites, like the furthest location, that they will have to be actively participating because of the, uptick with the enrollment when it opens up, the first 2 years, and then they kind of move up. So that's going to take up most of their time for curriculum. So I just don't think that, for them to be located out of that location. What I'm trying to say is that I think the core of the service for the district has to be centralized. And of course, we should welcome that satellite location in the north location for them to, to visit and to work with the WestMac. transportation is I think is an opportunity for us to expand, especially with our eighth school that is really located really south of our district, and then the district office really up north. Even with that gap, when you guys are setting up the new route for the new high school, which you guys have to, that can be not include, it can be implemented with the new route for the lighthouse and so forth. That will be easily because they have to run through it. So it's almost like a bus stop. So I know if Bert was here, he'll understand what I'm trying to say. I get what you guys are saying, the concern about the transportation, but we can also have an opportunity to, um, to pick, picky tail on, on the new bus route with our eighth school. And also with West Mag, I know it'll be walking distance, so we don't have to worry about that. But we have to think outside of the box. I mean, ultimately, we have to think about what is centralized, and we need to be consolidated and to be the most effective way to operate. And I get what you're saying, like, some time it would be best to go to the north location. I respectfully disagree. I think that will be a mistake. I think that give them a satellite office where they can use it as a satellite office when they need to go up there, so be it, and it'll be, available, but not to be localized there as their, main, hub. But those are, I mean, those are just my, input, because ultimately, the survey want the district office to be here in Tolleson. And just based on location and the logistics of it, including transportation and the opportunity of our growth of our eighth, school that have to literally, some of them may have to go up to north for the West Mac anyway. I think that's an opportunity to do like a little, bus stops, route and so forth. But that's, I mean, Bert's not here, but I would ask on this a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, not.
Anyway,
I mean,
that's
we
just my
can't get.
input.
Yeah, I mean, getting too much into this, but you can't really create routes for CA and Lighthouse. I mean, especially with Lighthouse, where it's a situation where a kid might, if a kid gets suspended today, long term, they're going to Lighthouse. Like, so I can't, Jeremy can't go to Bert tomorrow and be like, all right, redraft the bus route because there's now 2 new kids in Lighthouse when we already have the situation set up. So that's why it makes sense to have these locations centralized. Um,
I mean, I
and it
understand.
makes
Yeah, that
more
makes, I mean,
sense
that does make
for
sense,
staff to go to a
but what
satellite
happens,
facility
yeah.
than to ask students and parents to find additional means to get to that facility every single day. Because I mean,
Well,
it's one thing to talk about the
current
family resource
lighthouse, yeah,
center,
but the
but
transportation we
a
have
class is like
currently,
every day, so these students and parents are gonna have to like every day find means to get to somewhere that was already possibly a struggle for them to get here in a
well, no,
centralized
I think guys
location.
understand what I'm trying to say is that right now we're struggling with after-school program, and that if we can make it cost-effective to create a route where it will be operating outside of that timeline, it will also be feasible within that bus stop route for various campuses to do after-school programs.
But you're
That's,
asking to spend continuing operating dollars instead of one-time dollars, which are easier to spend and more conducive, not just for our students, but even for our staff
sometimes
members and
that we need
ongoing
to
funds.
increase costs to the slightest to compensate. And with our new school, we have to do it anyway. Our current Lighthouse students are limited. We may want to expand their scope of, opportunities as
That's why we
well.
wanted to shift everybody.
Well, I mean, like I said, I mean,
It-
I'm okay if that's feasible. I'm just saying
Oh,
that
it
let's
is.
explore more cost-effective way of operating. I can see it and I understand it, but I don't think you guys understand what I'm saying and what I'm seeing.
And that's fine. If I'm being asked to find new monies to create a plethora of random new bus routes every month, or hiring 1 to 3 additional um, uh, teacher assistants at each site, I can tell you which one I'm going to do because our classrooms need
Well,
additional
I think you're
teacher support.
confusing the basic, mathematics that the shortest distance is a straight line. I'm not really asking it to be expand it. There's no such expand. It's rearranging to be more
But there's no
efficient.
current bus route.
That's what I'm trying to say. We're going to have one for our eighth school. We just do.
Yes.
So if we're going to have that, and with the cost that's going into that, that we can piggyback on that potentially, and also to expand, possibly giving this route to these, district programs and lighthouse programs and whatnot. Again, this is a budget issue. Maybe we can revisit as we move forward. I would like to sit down and get some feedbacks from transportation, our superintendent, what the cost is. But I know right now where they're at, they don't have transportation, like you said. So taking them to the north, it's going to be the same scenario. So what's the difference? I get where you
You
guys
want to
are
ask a
coming
parent
from.
from Sierra Linda to go from driving to
And
Tolleson.
vice versa.
President
driving to
Chapman,
Glendale.
And vice
there's a lot
versa.
of misinformation. Do you mind if I invite
Okay.
Derek up to share a little bit more about what happens with CEA and Lighthouse? So
Or we
there's
do-
just some clarity, because I know we probably have some people watching at home. They're like, yeah, none of that's accurate, and I'd like Derek to point out how we do things now.
Thank
so
you.
So we are doing that, sorry.
Yeah, President Chapman, Mr. Calles. Yes and no. We are providing transportation to students in district. We do not
all right.
provide transportation to every student that's attending Lighthouse and CEA. So it is a hybrid answer, but just for clarification, we do provide that to the in-district students that were attending our schools when they either chose or were placed at Lighthouse or CEA. They do run regular routes every day. We have a morning route for that 4 hours in the morning. We have an afternoon route that not only picks up those students that are in the morning session, but they also drop off the afternoon session students. So there is a route already for Lighthouse and CEA, but it's not for all students. So
Okay.
some clarification
Okay,
there.
so-
And
So
Derek,
the
could you?
answer
Apologies, my
is, the answer
understanding
is
that we
yes
weren't,
and
so,
no.
okay.
Hold on, before we go to
Maybe
the
that's
next one,
what I
I just want to get
misunderstood.
some clarification now that he's addressing this particular issue. When my son was attending school, he was supposed to be in Sierra Linda, that was the territory. But they wanted him to come to Tolleson, but we had to provide our own transportation because they consider that out of district. And then we were exploring,
That's
distant
not,
learning.
alternate. The question was about alternative education.
I'm using this as an example so that I can follow up with what I want to
No,
say in
the
the
student,
question.
the students that are in the district that live in a particular residential area for each school are not transported to a school outside of their residential area.
So my
We do
son
that for
was,
alternative
my son
education.
is in the Sierra Linda district,
Mhm.
but he wants to enroll at Tolleson. So we were told that we had to provide our own transportation.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's what I just said before.
No, the conversation was about Lighthouse and CEA. It
But
was
I-
not our comprehensive high
Right,
schools.
but I started to talk about my son and my personal experiences, and then you start injecting on it, and then I let you talk. So now we're here again. So I'm just telling you my story, and then you inject it in the middle of it by saying that that's not correct. So what is it that I said that was not correct? That based on my anecdotal experience with my son going to Sierra Linda, but he wanted to go to Tolleson, so they said I had to provide the transportation, and that's where you injected, saying that's not correct. So what is it that I said that was not correct? That was anecdotal experience that I was trying to express.
Good. So the answer to the question is the conversation was in reference to alternative education. Lighthouse and CEA are alternative education programs. We provide transportation to students in the district that reside in the district to alternative education programs. We do not provide transportation to students that are not in the district to alternative education programs.
So Board Member Chapman asked you a question and you responded, and then I'm jumping in with a question, but before I make my statement, I want to share you my anecdotal experience so that I can direct my question to you so that you can answer it. But then you told me that it was incorrect. Then you brought me back to the question that you were addressing with Chapman, which I'm not addressing it. Now I'm addressing it with you with my own question. But before I do, I'd like to share with my anecdotal experience, and that's when you said I am wrong, incorrect, and then you went back and said you want to direct the question to what Chapman was telling you, which I have no concern, no business, no interest in what he said to you and back and forth. Now I am talking to you as another board member with a different question, with a different viewpoint, addressing the issue that's at hand, starting with my anecdotal experience, and you interrupted me and saying that I don't know and I am wrong.
With all due
What is
respect,
your-
ma'am, please do not disrespect me.
I need
I
you
will answer
not
your
to
question.
disrespect me when
do.
you interrupt me, when I'm trying to ask a question and
Okay.
you keep
The
interrupting me.
question was
And
asked
that is
about
so
transportation, and he was answering it.
inappropriate.
I will be happy to answer when you tell me, please answer.
I will ask you to answer without you interrupting me.
Ask your question.
I think that no one gets a pass to disrespect the board by injecting and stopping a board member from asking a question by starting with their own anecdotal experience. If you guys don't like the way it's being presented, that's tough. You still have to listen. And then when I ask you to answer, then you can answer. You don't interrupt a board member when they're speaking, ever.
You can
So
ask your
President
question.
Chapman, Member Sun, what I believe Mr. Folsom was trying to point out is you were
I
bringing.
understand what he's pointing out.
bringing
Now I
out-
have a question, and I'm still not giving the opportunity to ask the question.
You
I've
were
asked
bringing
you
out the difference
repeatedly.
between the
Do you
relationship of
understand?
being
I am
outside
not
of the
giving
school
the
boundaries.
opportunity.
Everyone,
I am
stop.
not
Outside of
asking that
district
question.
Everyone, stop.
I'm not directing this to
Ask
you.
your question, please.
I am asking my
No,
question,
you're
but if you
not.
guys stop interjecting,
Nobody's interjecting.
yes,
I've
you are.
repeatedly
Yes,
asked you
you
to ask your
are.
question.
Yes, you are.
Okay, ask your question.
He said that do not disrespect him when he interrupted me. You want to go and see the video?
Answered your question is what I heard. You asked about
I
your...
will not be treated with such disrespect. Do not interrupt me.
Ask your question.
I'm going to ask my question after I give my grievance for the disrespect that was directed at me and being interrupted and telling me that I was wrong.
I didn't hear that at all.
He said that it was incorrect. And I'm like, that's not a question. I'm starting with my anecdotal experience. With my son going to Sierra, Linda, and then they said that I had to get my own transportation. So based on that, I was trying to ask you a question. How would that affect with the students in current? But he interjected me with disrespect and not allowing me to speak. And then when I get upset, I'm disrespecting you.
So your question is?
If you guys are not going to respect me, don't expect me to respect you. It's both ways. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't break policy, don't make up policies, and then everyone's staying quiet and not addressing it.
So we've been waiting for your question now for like 2 minutes.
I'm going to ask a question after I express the disrespect that was brought to me.
Mr. Folsom, you can please have a seat. I don't think we're getting to the question here. Thank you.
No, I am not done because I did not ask my
Do you have
question.
a question?
Why don't you just butt out?
I'm not going to.
Okay, if you're not going
You're
to,
not
then
gonna
I'm going to address this with you.
Okay. Do you have a question about the transportation?
I do.
Okay. What is your question about transportation?
So if you can stop bugging me about it and directing it to you,
You keep saying you can't ask a question. I'm sitting here waiting for it. I think we all are.
so with the transportation from the lighthouse and the district learning, you said earlier to Chapman that it is covered if they're in district. That means they can be anywhere in the district. So what I was trying to share with you is that with campuses to campuses, does that apply to the district learning? Like if they were coming from Sierra and they went to the lighthouse, but because they're in Sierra, and they're in district, do you mean by that that they will have transportation, regardless if they're coming from 6, 7 other campuses? Does that make sense? Because I was trying to give you my anecdotal experience with my son when he was at Sierra, but because he doesn't live in Sierra, he lives in a different campuses, but it's still within district, he wasn't able to get transportation, which is fine. Like, we can handle that. But I'm just saying some of these students, they don't have that kind of support. So when you came up and said that some of our students, if they live in district, not campus, but based on district, right? Which is different from campus territory because it's a subset of the district. And then when you were talking earlier saying like, no, they don't have it. So I'm here thinking, are you just making things up or are you just saying it? So when you came up and when you made that correction, I just want to further to clarify. But when I started to talk, you interrupted me. And then you accused me of disrespecting you because I was upset. So can you understand where I was trying to get to based on this question I'm trying to ask you to get clarification so that the public understand? Because they don't understand when they say like, oh, transportation. Okay, what does that mean? We want to make sure that we are on the same page. So when I was giving my anecdotal experiences, was trying to clarify and to make it more visible for people who don't understand when we come up with these routes and why it's a challenge for you to disrespect me like that, which I took it that way. I don't think you mean it. But can you see how when you interrupted me, I'm like, wait, what's going on? And now I'm trying to like think, and then I'm all flustered, and then I got a bully over here, like, answer your question, answer your question, answer your question, like so high school. And to the point, like, how are we ever going to get this work done? If we don't listen to each other, regardless if you don't like the tone, regardless if we don't like the comments, regardless how we don't like the way it's done, we still have the right to ask the questions and to get to the point as any of us 5 board members. You want to be respected? Start with respect. I will follow. I don't start. I will finish. So if we want to understand, so when we sit here and we ask you questions, sometimes we know the answer. Sometimes we do. But we ask it for the sake of the public, for the community. You know, we're not here to say things that you already know, because we know you know. You're the expert. We want to come forward because sometimes I hear something, I'm like, that just can't be true, you know? And then our superintendent called you up to clarify. And now that you're here, we're going to take this opportunity and we're going to have this dialogue so that the public can hear and to understand. So now going back to the questions, that we do provide transportation for those that are in district, meaning all 7 campuses, regardless if they're coming from West Point, La Jolla, Canyon, or Sierra. If they're coming in district, we will have transportation for them with the Lighthouse and district learning and so forth, correct?
Yes, ma'am, if I may ask some clarity on that question.
Sure.
Okay. The anecdotal example that you used was your student was in the Sierra Linda boundaries, is that correct? And wanted to attend another school,
Within district.
correct? That's where I want to make my clarification. If your student, your child was in Sierra Linda and wanted to attend La Jolla, that is not an alternative education, which is where I'm getting with the clarification.
Exactly, and I understand that.
We do
And-
not provide that.
Right, and that's fine. And that's where I wanted to have that conversation before it got really messy. And you can see how I'm here like, no, don't do that to me, right? And I know that's not your intention, but it did come off that way when you interrupted me in the middle of my anecdotal, explanation to get clarification. Because I do understand, because if you're in the district and we're not in Lighthouse or distant learning or whatnot, then we can't expect the district to cover every kid who wants to just go anywhere they want. You guys had to limit your resource based on the need, and these students are more special because of the situation they're in. So yeah, that makes sense. So thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that.
And if I may expand on
Sure.
it just a little bit.
Yes,
So
please.
the students that are in any boundary in our district that would like to attend another school in the district, that answer is no, we do not provide it.
Exactly.
We do provide transportation to any student that's in our boundaries to our alternative education programs, Lighthouse and CEA. We
Right.
do not provide transportation to DLA because they're online. So just full clarification on all 4 of those examples because they're all a different answer. So that's why I want to make sure I gave you full clarity.
So Derek, I understand that.
Okay.
And what I was trying to explain earlier, and they're saying that, oh, let's call up Derek because, there's a lot of misinformation. Yes, there were misinformation. And I'm desperately trying to make it clearer for the public to understand we can potentially make this work. We're not all same in information and knowledge and how we interpret the information. As a public body, we have this opportunity to have this discussion without getting hostile, without getting rude. And I get it. I'm trying to be me and get the right information out desperately. And if you can just hear what I'm trying to say, because I'm not the expert. I don't have your vernacular. I have my vernacular. You have yours. And I'm trying to learn yours. But we have certain board members that already know your vernacular. So it may sound like, more familiar to you, but doesn't mean that you have new board members that don't understand the gravity of your position. We are here trying to make it easier for all of you guys. But our communication style may be different. But you have to understand that if we're going to do transportation adjustment, this is not for you, Derek, but just in general, for my fellow board members, like we need to, look for changes because when we have a new campus, that's going to be a change. That's going to be a shift. And what kind of opportunities do you think we can pick up from there? Like can we like sit down and talk to transportation about this and, sit down with our superintendent, do a little work study again and have that discussion potentially. And I'm just saying like as a discussion. I'm not saying like, oh, this is a requirement, but to bring it to the public so that they understand the gravity of it. Because when we make a decision, then we have, a certain group of our community that is controlling the narrative among a huge population that doesn't know what's going on the inside. They can potentially get hijacked, and we will be in a position where we won't be able to, have the platform to share the information. That's all I'm saying. So as far as the transportation goes, I like to see, if possible, and I like to request that if Bert can come before us and give us the detail of how the challenges of the routing before we can make a decision on the location, for these various programs to go to the north, territory, because I think that would be more feasible, for these students if they were located, near a more of a conducive environment where they feel like there may be potential more opportunities as well. Rehabilitation, reestablish education for those that are more in challenge need. That does require an extra, support system and
So,
environment.
just to clarify, you want to keep everybody here and turn the Glendale facility into the alternative program buildings.
No, there's the community center, there's the family center, there's like the, just because of the education with the West Mac satellite conferences room for the satellite, cabinet members and so forth, with the backup for IT as well. And then have the third floor just remove intact first, second, the community centers and so forth, because that in itself can grow into, because there's plenty of space.
Okay, that didn't answer my question. Who is staying here?
The district office cabinet members and their team. I think OLAS, I think they
So
should have the satellite.
That doesn't address the staffing or the space issues, which was
The
what we were trying-
renovation will occur here. You said
Okay,
27 million.
So again, to Jeremy's earlier presentation, there was not a feasible model to add space to the existing complex.
Well, that's why we have our architect here, is that they're coming up
We
with
had an
the
architect.
alternative.
We had an architect already established that.
So you're saying that you want the district office to be in Glendale, period?
I'm suggesting that there could be satellite office there for some of the departments, as we've already branched off into the warehouse building with 2 or 3 departments, keeping some of the core stuff here, including superintendent, the governing board, whatever department she mentioned.
But the
while
warehouse is
moving-
centralized. I mean, warehouse is considered Tolleson. I mean, it's not like they're out, way out west. I mean,
Gabe
it's
can't
centralized.
really walk from warehouse to. I mean, I guess
I
you
mean-
could.
I mean,
I'm not
that's-
saying you're out of shape. Like, you're
Yeah,
way
I mean,
better
you guys
shape
can
than I
have
am,
a
but
golf
that's
cart.
like a
We'll
long
get
walk.
a golf cart going if we have to. But I'm saying that the renovation to expand the location here with all the buildings, is more feasible because of you said 27 million. I mean, that's plenty, as well as 7.5 transferred from the Glendale location.
So President Chapman, and I think Derek probably would have gotten to some of these points if we kept going down this conversation. A couple things. First, transportation would absolutely tell you that if they could, every single school and every program would be right here next to the transportation department. That is the easiest way to transport. Obviously, moving to any other location than having those 2 programs here is going to be more difficult for them. That's not to say that they won't find a way to get it done. But the more complex issue is going to be that we sometimes have students who attend CEA and still play football with Tolleson. How would that be possible if they're in the middle of a corporate complex to play on the corporate complex football team? Like, the only reason why that's practical and allowable for them to do any type of extracurricular activities, I use football as an example, there's other extracurriculars that we have allowed them to be a part of at the Tolleson campus because it is right there. It is walking distance for the student to walk over to that campus and participate in extracurricular activities when they're in CEA. And I don't know if you wanted to add more on that point, Derek?
Before he speak, I just wanted to say, like, those CEA students can also go to the nearby campuses, wherever's closest to the north location. Doesn't
They're
have
not
to
gonna be
be
able to walk.
Tolleson. It's not about walking or not, because here they're not really walking, especially in the 3-digit heat. It's conducive for them to walk to the nearest, to travel to the nearest campus up in Glendale as well with the Copper Canyon location, or is it La Jolla? Which one's closer
It's a
to Glendale?
2-minute walk to Tolleson. It's probably going
So-
to
It's
be
not
at
2
least-
minutes.
Right now,
Building's
we
right there.
have,
No,
we have
my-
just enough, so let me explain how transportation works. End of the day, early schools release, buses go, they pick up everybody from the early schools, they take them home. They immediately then pick up everybody from the late schools and take them home. We staff out, so that way we have just enough people to be able to take everybody back and forth. In order to transport somebody at the end of the day from a Glendale facility to Copper Canyon to participate in football means I have to pull a driver off a route to take the 1 or 2 kids that need to go over to that other complex. That's adding an extra bus, an extra driver, an extra cost to move them over when we wouldn't have that expense if they were already next to a campus.
With the CEA student, it's not just 2. How many students do we have in CEA?
We have potentially 24 students in the morning session and 24 in the afternoon would be ideal, and that's at both locations, Lighthouse Academy and CEA. It's staffed to be a 24 session, morning and afternoon at both locations.
How many participate in extracurricular activities with the Tolleson campus?
There are a number, but I wouldn't be able to maybe recite that right now without being inaccurate. At certain times, there's more than others. Sometimes there's probably none, and sometimes there's probably several, but
And
it
they're various
varies.
in campuses, right? They're across all 7 campuses.
That is true. The part that is really important, and I'm going to get back to students real quick. The part that's really important for me and Misty Andrews in our department is when we do long-term suspend kids, our goal is to immediately transition them successfully back to their home campus. Part of the way that we do that is we produce a hybrid model where they're fully enrolled in Lighthouse, and then we begin to integrate them maybe 1 period or 2 periods or 3 periods. We also have students that are in Lighthouse and CEA that are getting their core requirements in there. We will allow them to get their performing arts or their fine arts or their PE or their dance or their band or their choir. All of those, we allow them to get on the campus transition back to their comprehensive campus. So we utilize Tolleson High School, all of their programs for a transitional purpose, for successful transition back to their home campuses. We don't start off that way right away, as you guys know, when we have the long-term suspensions, but that is our ultimate goal, to successfully transition them back. And we utilize the comprehensive campus to do that. We would not have a campus if we took alternative ed to Glendale. There wouldn't be a way to transition that 1 period, 2 period, 3 periods transition. There wouldn't be a school there to walk across to. So we do utilize it possibly for extracurricular, but in my department, we utilize it to successfully transition back more than we do anything. I mean, that's our goal.
So with 24, that's about 48 students across 7 campuses, including university, well, not including, I guess will be 6 more or less in terms of location-wise. That's pretty much equally distributed. And to transition back, it means back to 6 locations. And those 6 locations with equal distance, either be in the north location or in the centralized location, the gas, the district, the routing is equal. Some places when you get transition will be closer, all in all, depending on the location of the campuses. So for superintendent guys to extrapolate just one campus and use that as an example is misguided and misleading. And I don't really appreciate that. Stop it. And if we're going to move forward, let's be more holistic to look across the whole district and look at the need. But with the statement that Superintendent Guys made as an example, I completely understand the challenges. That couldn't apply to every district. So my question is that when we want to move these programs to a new location, look at the positive of it for these students. It's the new environment, a new facility, it's like rehabilitating. Everything is still in place. The support system, the routing for transportation has to be adjusted anyway with our new schools, with the micro schools as well that's coming in the future. That's going to happen. And we now have to explore other opportunities with artificial intelligence that they use at the city municipalities with traffic lighting and how that can work and to implement that for routing. It does work. We've seen that in urban settings in other cities in Louisiana that has shown a great success where we want to reduce the use of gas and time and to maximize the staffs that are the drivers is that we have to look into these programs and they are available. I'm not saying that I'm not going to, like, I don't disagree on anything. I'm just asking to think outside and to think more. That's it. More for our students. I'm not trying to say like, oh, this had to be this way, but think about it and see what we
So,
can.
just to clarify
Yeah.
again, you want to move students to the new facility for classes.
It's not just moving to the new facility. It's the key issue that we have is the needs the transportation, but everything else will be a
Well,
plus for them.
Regardless of transportation,
Okay.
you want to move students from CEA and Lighthouse to the new facility.
Where they will be more conducive with the community center, the family
So
center.
yes,
Yeah, I think it's best for
Superintendent
them.
Guy is, can we use this bond for that building if the plan is to put classroom space?
No, they're not the
No,
only
that
one
would
that's
then make
there.
it school space. It would not be out of the administrative bond that we have approved. That's not administrative space if we're going to house students over there into this construction. Not only that, but we would probably have to cancel this project and start over because we would have to figure out how are we managing the student traffic with the adults. Like, we're not going to want them intermingling. Like, it changes the whole project at that point if we're talking about now using it for student space instead of administrative space.
Yes. So again, it sounds like we have a healthy compromise. We know the big contentious point of this project was relocation of district office. It's been said, seems to be a consensus. Just hearing from what I'm hearing from my colleagues, that this will be the district office. That's it. Building B will house other teams. Now, I personally trust our staff to decide who goes in that building because I'm not here day to day. I don't know what it's like to work in our departments. I don't know what it's like. So I trust the experts to then plan effectively, which is what they get compensated to do, plan effectively to best set themselves up for success, which means serving our students at our campuses. So, I mean, unless there's any new information, I don't know what else we can really discuss tonight. We can be here all night talking about whether we move students here or we keep them. We could be here all night talking about transportation and, you know, the gasoline, the tires, and all this. It seems like there's some sort of a consensus. So unless there's any new information, like I say, we just wrap this thing up.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest, is it, I don't know, feasibility, like maybe mostly on your end, I guess, with the GMP, of looking at an option of a 2-story and a 3-story. Don't know what's in them, or per se. I mean, some of the departments probably, but is that something you can kind of like look at between now and tomorrow?
I wouldn't even recommend that because there's so much. Again, I'm not an architect.
Well,
Well, let me.
not necessarily, not
well,
necessarily
I have
talking about
can I have a
design except
suggestion? Can
for
I ask for a
the-
suggestion? I think they do have some, based on now additional feedback. I think they do have additional, input. So we may want to hear from them wherever they have, and later on. But just going back to what you said earlier about the bonds and what's for and for the students, I think my concern is that if we were to renovate the Tolleson area further, would that also impede on the misuse of the bonds for the students? Or we're going to keep the renovation limited for the district learning and the lighthouse?
Mr. President, members of the board, so when you look at the renovation that would be needed in Building B, very minimal. They already have a break room that would function as a kitchen area for staff and students. Essentially, we would be clearing out the cubicles that are in the center, maybe not all of them because they do use some cube spaces, but mostly leaving a nice open area that's for their computer lab, and those private offices would already be able to function as individual classrooms. So Travis hasn't been able to fully look at the possibilities of what it looks like moving into Building B, but we're talking very minimal, like I would expect less than $1 million. Like it wouldn't even come to board, it would go on a jock. And we would be able to fix Building B to make it work for the needs of CEA. When looking at CEA and moving Lighthouse in there, Travis said he could probably have Lighthouse move into CEA as is. It already has what he needs for Lighthouse. So yes, those shift are very minimal, cost. They would be out of school funds. So we would use the portion of our bond that's still left for school funds. And we would do that minimal renovation of less than $1 million. And we would be able to take care of Lighthouse and CEA by doing the shift of the two buildings.
You guys.
Well,
look
I
like-
just feel like the priority, I just feel like it has to be, for, our staffs, the team, not, not particularly like, the cabinet members, but their team members, in this location, either be in Building B or A or curriculum, whatnot, that needs to be renovated. So that's outside of what you were saying about the $1 million for the CEA Lighthouse location.
If they went to the Glendale facility, they don't need a renovation. Every single one of her team members has already sat down with the architect and told them this is exactly what we need for our departments. So if you want to honor staff, the best thing to do is to go forward with the design that they spent the time with the architect designing. So they would have all their needs met at the new building. As for the A building, once the B building has left, so once OLAS has left.
Did you say the CEA staffs will be in the?
You said departments. So if you're getting back to departments, that's OLAS moving out there and Building B, them moving out there. Like, yes, they've already designed that place to be perfect for their needs. So
I know, but
they're fine.
OLAS needs to be centralized among the 7 and potential 8 campuses.
OLAS does not need to be centralized. OLAS works closely with, I could have Dr. Rizalva Laguna Squatley come up here and tell you how often those coordinators go to that location already to meet with WestMec and to hold their meetings. They're already driving out there. Now, instead of driving out there, they can walk
So
back
they
and forth
work
in the
with
parking lot.
WestMac and our own 7 campuses?
Both. They go out to the campuses and they go out to WestMec.
So wouldn't
But
it
either way,
be
they're
in
still
the
commuting.
central, Tolleson will be an equal distance among all of the 7 campuses?
Just real quick, please.
Yeah, good evening, President Chapman, Member Sun. So currently, our coordinators, our directors, they go out to the sites. If they are going to the sites, they usually start the day at the site. So they don't come here to the district office. They start off at the sites, and they spend the time there. Sometimes they do come over here at the beginning in the mornings part of it, and then in the afternoon, they go out. But one of the challenges that we currently are facing is that we have OLAS team members in Building A, we have team members in Building B. It's really difficult to collaborate, to come together to plan when we're in 2 different buildings. So what we would love is if we would be in a place where we're all together.
Well, that will be under the renovation that we'll be doing here in the Tolleson location, is to create that space for you guys to be in one location and expanded for the team members.
I think the point is that I don't know how many of you play D&D out there, but that building is not a bag of holding. I can't just create additional space for how many people are in your department altogether?
I think like close to 60.
Yeah, we're not going to create space for 60 people unless we have double-story cubicles, and I'm
Well,
pretty
the
sure
thing
Derek
is that
would not
you
like
just
that from a
mentioned that we
safety
have
standpoint.
$27 million to renovate, and that we
Yeah,
don't
but
have.
But where are we
renovation
building
is
more
different
square
than
footage?
yeah.
It doesn't matter how many different ways we put walls in here. If you're not creating more square footage, we can't have more space.
That's what we're saying, is that when we renovate.
How would we
So you
get
wanna
more
tear
square
down this
footage?
campus and
And that's
rebuild.
what we're asking the architect to come up with, the renovation design
That's not a
for the
renovation.
Tolleson
That's
location.
totally
That's a
brand
new
new
building.
construction.
And that's fine, how that's gonna look like, and to connect walkways with the existing building. And if we had to do another floor with the renovating of the 20 additional $1 million.
Okay.
That's where we were 3 years ago. So we have come full circle now over 3 years of going back to the original idea, which was what is the cheapest way to build additional space? And we said, how can we open up and combine the A and B building so we could have some additional space? And we've already had, I can bring Gabe up. Gabe, do you want to talk about all the challenges we had trying to join
I know, but
the two
$27 million
buildings?
is not the cheapest way. That's plenty of resources. And again, I would like to hear from the architect in the terms of the design.
But you don't have $27 million because you can't
Well, that's what you
move.
said.
Well, that's if we build the Glendale facility, but you can't build the Glendale facility if your plan is to put students in there because that's not a proper use of those bond dollars.
The thing about the students is the location of the staffs and the department, and what the students, where they need to be, will be wherever they are currently. But for the district staffs to be localized here in Tolleson will be the most cost-effective and effective in working within the district, especially coming in with the eighth school.
I guess we're having an issue with Squarespace, but go ahead. Yeah,
Can I,
sorry.
can I add
Yes.
one more thing? Just, so if we're looking at, the Glendale facility and we have the Family Resource Center there, then, and if we're here, OLAS is here, that's still part of OLAS, the Family Resource Center, members that are gonna be there. So it's just trying to find a way and have everyone together, because then we're in the same situation that we can't collaborate and not everyone is all together. So
Could
just
you-
something to think
yeah,
about.
Could you elaborate, like, what further encompasses OLAS? So you said the family center and I guess / community center. You have, what, 60 people, right? And your
correct.
team right now is in 2 separate buildings. And then if that was alleviated to go to the Glendale location, that will be, you said earlier that we can expand, for the students, programs and whatnot. So that's one department. What was the other departments that needs to be moved to the north location? Because I can hear the need, and that's what I want to hear. But I can't just agree if I'm not understanding, and then with the misinformation that's given, and then Derek comes up and correcting it, and I'm here thinking that's what I thought, but I'm hearing something different. So besides OLAS, what are other departments that needs to go to the north location? Because I really don't feel like the district cabinet members need to go to the north location. I really don't. I mean, with the renovation that's going on, with the exception of OLAS. I mean, I understand now, with the
Yeah, we're all
gravity of
together,
it.
yeah.
And you're saying to me that majority of the time they start at the campus.
If they're going to be at the
No,
campus,
that's fine,
yeah.
right.
Mhm.
So what other department?
So IT needs a backup location.
And that's fine. He said that either way is fine, but I'd rather have
Yeah.
this to be centralized because the
That's fine.
ecosystem and with the backup going
So
to.
we'd still have a server room built for IT over there. Outside of that, it was HR just to create more space here in Building A. But if we're making it work with HR staying, then, Stacy's not going to miss her kitchenette over there. So I think
No,
she'll be fine.
But the point is that when we do the renovation, is where I thought that will be conducive for OLAS. But if it's going to be the community center, then that is the need that they have to serve the community with. I want the district office here to be renovated and expanded and updated for all the party members involved. And we were talking about it to be $27 million. I understand everything is being said, but I just get confused because I get a lot of miscommunication, and I do process that. But do you see how hard it is if I'm getting one misinformation? So who's telling me the truth? And I have to go with the fact and then say, okay, the designers, the architect, they have to now come up with some sort of a, picture.
Yeah, and if I can answer some logistical questions for you that you had asked. The first one being, what if the construction partners could get you a cost of a building without a third floor, it's a you can't just pull the pieces out. There's a domino effect to
Sure.
everything, and it would have to be redesigned, and they would have to reprice it, and it would take time to do all that. And we just want to remind everybody that there's the GMP that's on the table. If it doesn't go through, the construction partners can't guarantee long-term pricing. Prices might go up, and so it would have to be rebid. That's one point. To do the remodel here, to your point, Superintendent Caius, is you can't. What you're talking about doing here is building a new building. If you want to,
No.
the renovations of
No.
the space, to your point, would not be as I don't think it would cost $27 million.
Can I have the GC up here?
Sure.
So for the third floor, or have that removed?
So I think there's some confusion on third floor. What we are talking about is removing essentially the guts of the third floor,
Right.
meaning walls, furniture, etc. We still have to build the third floor, so the structure remains in place. Currently, what we're talking about is permitting. We're in with permitting, which is currently under the current building code, which is 2018. If we stop the process to redesign, meaning we remove the entire third floor in its entirety to include structure, we will have to reapply for permit and go through the process all over again. That price, I would have to go back and evaluate. I right now know that if we just take out the interior guts of the third floor, if you will, the walls, carpet, etc., leave IT and just concrete and windows, we would, that was the 200 to 200.
Would it still be at 65 million?
No, no. When you remove the carpet and the walls, there is a
The
price
interior, there'll be
delta.
a 6.7, like $250 per square feet.
It
with
was
30,000.
200 to 250. We
Right,
have
so
to
that
do
comes out
the
to be,
evaluation.
Yeah, 6.7
right?
million. Okay.
Ish, right?
Yeah.
Once we do
No,
that
thank you for
evaluation.
that. Thank you for that, information. Right back? I'm sorry. Okay, so now with that in mind, with the third floor intact, you guys still have to reevaluate the GMP, correct? Because it's going to be emptied out. It won't be at 65 million, right?
No. No, a GMP is a guaranteed maximum
Right.
price, not a minimum price. It's a guaranteed maximum price. And therefore, if you adopt a GMP that is 65 million and we change scope to reduce scope and there is a savings, as the CMAR process works, that savings is automatically given back to the district. It isn't there was a savings and, hey, great for you, McCarthy, you get to keep this savings. No,
yeah, I
that is
understand.
automatically returned to the district as a part of the CMAR process. So you don't have to change the GMP, get a new GMP,
But
bid
the
out with
GMP will be
everyone.
intact. I said, but the GMP will be intact. You guys don't need to change it
Yeah,
based on what we.
yeah,
just
that's correct.
discussed
That's the
with
maximum
third
price.
floor.
Yes, and then they wouldn't
Right.
need to do any re-permitting. We don't have to change building codes. Like, it would just be that whatever is not built on that third floor, if it's a hollow third floor for now, and that results in a savings, all of that savings is automatically returned back to the district.
I am so sorry to put you through this again. I understand this. I just want it to be public, if that makes sense to you.
Oh, we're good.
I know we talked about this before. I'm so sorry. But so that's the thing is that, we talk among ourselves and we're like, yeah, whatever, but we need to have this discussion and this debate to make it really clear so that when we get noises or support or neutral or not understanding, people come at us, they say we had this discussion, in this format. Does that make sense to you? Okay.
Is it possible for tomorrow, I guess, maybe to get what I was sort of trying to ask previously is, yeah, without all the stuff, well, I think we had just the server room, I guess, would be left on the third floor. Was that what was on the third floor was IT? So depending on if it fit anywhere else, but I guess third floor I think made sense with the rest of the departments. Could you have like an idea of like what not spending the rest of the money on the office spaces and stuff could look like, or would that just we'd have to like as we go? But
I think that we can give you a rough estimate.
Yeah,
and-
not-
and-
not
and-
again.
and a cost per square foot basis, to see what that value is, to give us a more fuller, in-depth actual cost. We'll need to do a more in-depth review of that. However, like Superintendent Kaez did say, is that the GMP is intact. And once that evaluation is done, we can return and report to the team,
Right.
and that could be then a return to the district when not used at the end of the project.
Yeah, it's really important for us to understand the line items for the public. They don't understand this process at all. You know, when we're always going to have naysayers, as you know, and we just have to be prepared for all this. And I don't really appreciate, some of my board members, misguiding information. I don't think they do it
Jesus.
intentionally, but when we go through these discussions, it gets really, really heated, and it's like we're not really listening to one another. And you have the institutional knowledge more so than some of us, and we're trying to catch up and understanding everything and asking the question to bring it to the public. We have different agendas, in terms of, what our fiduciary duty is really about and how that looks like.
Are there any further
I'm
questions
not done
or
talking.
comments in
I'm not
regards
done.
to? That's
I'm
fine.
not done.
I'm-
No, no,
Yeah,
no,
I'm-
no. Let me finish.
Mr. Del Blasio, do you
Let
have any
me
questions?
finish. So I do appreciate you guys coming today and joining us in this work study. I appreciate the cabinet members coming forward, those that did and shared your information. That is thorough and accurate. That helps me and everybody here on the board. Sometimes, when we can get the clear answers, we can do a better job in serving. And I'm going to be a little bit slower, just be patient, but we're going to get there. So thank you for everyone that came before the podium. Appreciate everything that you guys have given, and we'll move forward. And hopefully this time around, we will get everything that we need. There will be changes, obviously, but just remember, the board needs to know what is going on. We like to be informed. We like to be involved, not to rein, but to sometimes create a buffer if you guys allow us to. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
All right, just real quick. Did you want to say something? Okay. Yeah, well, no, go ahead, make your. I was going to close it.
Okay. No, I just wanted to thank our business partners who are here today. I want to thank all of our staff and really everyone in the room for their professionalism and your patience. And to my colleagues here on the board, we got to do a better job. We could berate each other all we want, but it's never a good idea to berate staff in public, belittle, and intimidate. I just can't sit here and tolerate anymore. So that, I hope, will stop moving forward. We need better decorum. And again, thank you all for this information and for answering the questions very thoroughly.
Yeah, Member Ortega-Romero, did you have any closing comments?
No closing comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Oh yeah, again, I just want to thank everybody for coming out, sharing your feedback throughout this entire process. Echo my colleagues' comments on how we're conducting business. But again, I think that we've had a lot of fruitful conversations throughout this time. Appreciate our business partners for all the work you put into this. Certainly our staff for all the ideas that they've floated to make sure that we have facilities that are conducive, not just for the work that we do here, but for the support that we provide for our teachers and students and families across the district. So with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? All right, have a motion and a second. All right, Member Ortega-Romero,
Yes.
Member Sun, Member Del Blasio. I vote yes. We are adjourned at 8:30 something. Thank you, everybody.
Nice.